Welcome back to Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this Kentucky Derby profile, we'll be taking a look at Summer is Tomorrow. A very unique story for sure in this year's Kentucky Derby. He'll actually be the first horse trained solely in Dubai to run in the Run for the Roses. While we've seen horses from major entities like Godolphin, Mike DeCox had a runner in here, Aidan O'Brien, he prepped in the UAE a couple times. We've seen horses like that make starts in Dubai before running in the Kentucky Derby. Summers Tomorrow is unique in the sense he has never ran outside of the UAE. 6 starts at Maidan, one at Jebel Ali. No horse has done that. So a very cool kind of local story there that we'll now see in Louisville. Summers Tomorrow's made 7 starts, 2 wins, 3 runner-up efforts, and then two more, off the board performances. Here you see his first career win. Went out to the lead, set a very quick pace, and just kept finding. That's going to become a recurring theme in the races we watch of his over the next few minutes. This was his third career start. His first two ran very credibly, I thought. Showed a lot of potential. Just hadn't put it all together yet, but he did here, going 6 furlongs at Maidan. Really strong victory, scoring by 4.5 lengths. He then returned about 20 days later, career start number 4 in a light conditions race at Maidan towards the beginning of their World Cup Carnival. Here you see he broke well again, and that's another theme. He is an insanely quick horse from the gates. That's not something we typically say when it comes to foreign runners. That they usually don't put too much emphasis on their horse's abilities to get away from the blocks, but Summers Tomorrow does not fit that bill. He flies out of there like a quarter horse, and that'll of course be a big factor come Kentucky Derby time. But right now, not necessarily on the lead here. He's having to kind of duel outside of a nice South American import, and you'll see in the stretch, Summers Tomorrow does run credibly, but this horse to his inside had much more seasoning, training, fitness under him. He was coming from South America for the World Cup Carnival. He was a bit older, and like I said, just plain more experienced than Summers Tomorrow. This was his 4th start, his first against winners, but he still digs in very well. This leader gets away towards the end, but Summers Tomorrow is chugging along. He's dominating the rest of the field for sure, and this is promising. I was really proud of this effort from this horse for only being his 4th race, first time against winners, technically stakes company, and he still held his own in a very big way. So following that start in January, he came back a month later and made that run at Jebel Ali I previously mentioned, and he ran 4th. It wasn't great, but at the same time, if you're not familiar with the track configuration at Jebel Ali, it's a straight course over a sprint distance, and that's what Summers Tomorrow was going over. And it has kind of an incline towards the end, and I just think his speed did not play too well to that track's configuration. So it's a race I'm willing to look past. Here is his next start, the Al Karama Stakes on February 25th, going 7 furlongs at Maidan, and once again jumps like a rocket. He flies out of the gate, asserts himself on the lead, and you can see the rider here. James Doyle was aboard for this race, and he is looking around. He says, "I want the lead," and he gets it with this horse. Very, very impressive. Clears the field, and naturally, for a horse with a lot of speed, you're going to be concerned about burning himself out on the front end. But he is traveling so well within himself right now. There's about 4 furlongs left at this point, and typically that's when you'll start to see the cracks in these sprinters. And he is just coasting right now. And of course, this being an overseas race, we don't have fractions readily available to us, but he is just doing it so well within himself. It's crazy. And then he cuts the corner here, and he takes off, switches leads like a good horse does, and just spurts away. He is a very fast, very talented animal. This race, more evident than most. He ends up winning this by over 8 lengths. I mean, that's a very, very strong effort from this horse. You see his ears are pinned back. He knows what his job is, and he is doing it extremely impressively. You can't help but like this horse because he is just a speedball with plenty of talent, and he crosses the wire kind of geared down at the end. Very, very impressive, and you'll see why it gets even more impressive with his next run here. The UAE Derby, of course, a very big race, always a big field. 100 points to the winner, 40 points to the runner-up. So essentially, 2 guaranteed spots in the Kentucky Derby. And this was a big deal for Summers Tomorrow. He had made his first 6 career starts going sprint distances, 6 or 7 furlongs, and had done very well. Now he has to take a big stretch out to 9.5 furlongs, a mile and 3/16, very nearly the Kentucky Derby distance. How will he do on bridling that pure talented speed that he has? Well, he breaks well once again, and he finds himself in front. And what he's going to do here is he's going to go and clear heading into the first turn, which is a big deal because the horse riding behind him is Pinehurst, an American Grade 1 winner, also won the Stoddy Derby this year. And that's a horse with a lot of unbridled speed as well, very similar to Summers Tomorrow. And with both of them coming out of sprint races, showing tons of speed. You knew they were going to be forwardly placed. So the fact Summers Tomorrow got there before him was extremely impressive, but also concerning because they are clearly going fast. Once again, we don't really get numbers here to analyze in terms of the fractions. And even if I was to guess why the what would be the first 4 furlongs right here, they were only going in about 47 seconds based off that clock in the top left corner. But I think they were going much quicker than that, and clearly they are because you're going to see a lot of the speed back up out of here. But Summers Tomorrow going out on the lead, going very hard. Once again, it's crazy. This horse had just won going 7 furlongs. He just stretched out 2.5 furlongs more for a sprinter type, as he's displayed that he is to this point. That just seems so rough. And you'd think at this point he's going to back up. Pinehurst, the horse that was sitting second there in that turquoise cap, he backs up immediately. I mean, he just stops hard right here. The other horse who was sitting third in the white cap, he backs up hard. Stalkers, closers are starting to come after him, but Summers Tomorrow was resilient as he could possibly be without winning. He comes into the stretch. You think he would flatten out, having gone harder than those other two horses that pressed him in the early going, yet he is still there. And they're running inside the final furlong now. He is in front by a length. He'll eventually get worn down by that Japanese horse Crown Pride here, who also runs in the Kentucky Derby. But you can probably tell, I'm floored by how well Summers Tomorrow performed in this race. Given the circumstances, this is just an incredible effort to run second in such a big field, going so fast on the front end, and still sticking around to run second, and most importantly, get 40 points on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And of course, the connections, they saw that opportunity and they realized we have 40 points towards the Kentucky Derby. We'll jump at it. They did have to pay the $6,000 late nomination fee because Summers Tomorrow was originally not nominated. Not surprising given he looked like he was only a sprinter to begin his career. But hey, when you're these connections, you want to jump at that opportunity. And I say it like these connections are chasing the experience. No, these are serious folks right here. The trainer Bhupat Seymour. This is technically his first year at the helm of an operation. He was an assistant for his uncle Satish Seymour for a very long time over in the UAE. Satish Seymour was suspended by the Emirates Racing Authority for no real violations. He's connected with people that are certainly suspicious. Excuse me. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but if you understand the political climate right now, do your own independent research. You can see maybe why he's been suspended, but it's nothing in terms of being a bad horseman or mistreatment of animals, anything along those lines. Drug infractions, kind of what I'm mostly alluding to, but nothing along those lines. Purely just some relational things. But Bhupat Seymour took over the training operation from that. They won the trainer's title this year. He sent out plenty of good horses, and Bhupat Seymour has excellent experience. He is a Bob Baffert assistant. He's been to Churchill Downs. He's experienced the Kentucky Derby, so they are not fresh at this. Bhupat Seymour knows what's going on. It was confirmed that Mikhail Barzalona will ride Summers Tomorrow in the Kentucky Derby. He was aboard him for the first time in the UAE Derby, and things obviously went very well there. Barzalona's won an Epsom Derby before for the very exciting where he stood up at the very end of the race when he was really in front by a neck and celebrated a bit prematurely, but he did get the job done there on Pourmois that year. So he knows how to ride a big race. So the connections, as I said, they know what they're doing. The pros, he impressed given the circumstances in the UAE Derby. He had to really go as hard as he possibly could in the early stages. The rest of the speed backed out, and he stuck around in very impressive fashion. I was floored by how well he ran. And another thing, his early speed is his weapon. I don't necessarily buy into the whole since the point system early speed dominates. I think it's more circumstantial than anything. Best horses winning the race, or really the last 3 years, it's just kind of been speed scratched out, speed didn't get out of the gate well, and that allowed for the eventual horse that crossed the wire first to get the perfect trip. For Summers Tomorrow, he is going to be in front. I think people don't really know who's going to be on the lead. This is your horse. Unless he doesn't break well, that is the only reason he will not be first past the wire the first time around in the Kentucky Derby. Because you see how quick he is in the early stages of the race. And I say if he doesn't break well, his gate speed is impeccable. I mean, it's better than truly any horse in this year's Kentucky Derby. There is nobody that gets out faster than him. And that's another thing. People say sprinters can't get into the Kentucky Derby anymore. I don't think he's a sprinter, but it's certainly been his best weapon to this point. And he'll be there. And he will absolutely be trying to go wire to wire in the Kentucky Derby. They're not going to put the brakes on with him. They are going to go to the front. And as I said, The Kentucky Derby's been won by horses on the lead in recent years. I don't know if that'll be the case here, but you'll find him forwardly placed, and that's never a bad thing, not having to navigate traffic in the Kentucky Derby. And then finally, his pedigree. I know I mentioned he seems like more of a sprinter in his running style, but I don't really know if that's totally true in terms of what he actually is, because we saw him go the mile and 3/16 last time, and he has a lot of good distance influences throughout his pedigree. His sire is Summerfront, who's by a war front, and Summerfront himself was a very good two-turn horse. On the dam side, not a ton of great siblings or incredible relatives, but you go deep in his pedigree, really drawing from Silver Deputy, his third sire from the dam. Silver Deputy, all he did was throw some really nice classic distance horses, and that's been reflected in most of his progeny and their offspring. So I really think the distance isn't much of an issue here with Summers tomorrow. He just has a lot of speed. The cons is the class, truly. He hasn't beaten anybody. No horses of graded stakes or Kentucky Derby level are horses that he's beaten. He's lost to bad horses, 3 back in his first 2 career starts. So that's certainly a negative. We don't really know how good he is in the grand scheme of this year's field. All we know is that he's a very fast and talented horse, but how talented remains the question. His only victories have come sprinting as well. Only one horse in the 21st century, and really, I think in most of Derby history, has won a race without prior 2-turn victories, and that was Funnyside back in 2003. And he did a lot of record-breaking things. First gelding in a while, first New York bred in a while. No 2-turn victories, no wins beyond a mile. Summers tomorrow is going to try to become the second horse this century to do that. That is very tough to do for sure. I think that's going to be difficult, but at the same time, we saw Summers tomorrow go a mile and 3/16 in pretty credible fashion as well. And then finally, the UAE Derby form, the Kentucky Derby has not been impressive. Nobody has won the Kentucky Derby using the UAE Derby as a prep. It's been getting better. I mean, it's not like they run horribly every time, especially in recent years, but it's very fair to question those foreign horses because there's no overlapping form for one, and on top of that, it's the horses they're facing in the UAE Derby don't hold a candle to our top American horses here. I mean, that's just a fact. That's been proven time and time again, and I don't think it's much different this year. The UAE Derby this year was not an incredibly strong field, but Summers tomorrow individually was very impressive. So I think on talent he's probably a couple low, but his speed is his weapon, and if things go his way, he might run a lot better than most people are expecting him to. So certainly positives with Summers tomorrow. A lot of people want to disregard him. I mean, maybe as a win contender, yeah, but I think he'll run a terrible race is very foolish. I've seen people say, why are they paying to come over to the U.S.? They have a good horse. They are not very aggressive people. They had a horse that ran well in the UAE Derby a couple years ago, and they passed on it. So there's not craziness for it's not crazy for them to be making this trip like some people think. This is a talented horse. He's shown it in all of his best career efforts. And while he might not win the Kentucky Derby, I think he's going to put forward a much stronger effort than most people think. So that's all I have for you guys on this Kentucky Derby preview. We'll see you next time here on Racing Rundown.